There are around 11 Mongolic languages. Since the distinction between a dialect and a language is defined differently in various sources, it's not really possible to give an exact number. Therefore, in this video, I tried to analyze as many sources as possible and created a substantial list of the Mongolic languages spoken across Asia. All of the Mongolic languages spoken today are derived from Middle Mongolian, which was spoken during Genghis Khan's era in the 1200s. Although the total population of the Mongolic people today is a little more than 10 million, which is not very high, the Mongolic languages are spoken in quite a large geographical region. But why is that? To understand how the Mongolic languages came about, let's take a quick trip back in time to the 13th century. In 1206 AD, when Genghis Khan became the leader of the Mongols, this is how the Mongolian lands looked. Until 1294, the year when Kublai Khan died, the Mongol Empire expanded at an unimaginable speed, and therefore in this short period, the Mongol people spread to various corners of the globe. However, after Kublai Khan's demise, the Mongol Empire disintegrated quite fast. Although many Mongols returned to Mongolia, a large number of them stayed in different parts of the former empire and mixed with the indigenous people. This point in history was when Middle Mongolian started to develop into different languages. As you might surmise, Mongolian is the principal member of the Mongolic language family, and it is by far the most spoken Mongolic language. Mongolian is the official language of Mongolia. The population of the country is 3.4 million, almost all of whom speak Mongolian. However, the largest Mongolian-speaking community is not in Mongolia, but in China. In China's Inner Mongolia region, there is a large Mongolian community. According to the 2020 Chinese population census, with a population of 6.3 million, the Mongols comprise 0.45% of China's population. Unfortunately, there is no concrete data on the number of Mongolian speakers in the country. However, estimates put the Mongolian-speaking population somewhere between 3 to 4 million. When it comes to Russia, the Mongolian population is quite small. According to the 2021 census, there are 1,318 Mongolians in Russia, 1,039 of whom are reported to speak Mongolian. One interesting thing I found is that outside Mongolia and China, the largest diaspora of Mongolian citizens is in South Korea. There are a little more than 38,000 Mongolians in South Korea, most of whom are migrant workers. As a result, although the Mongolian community in South Korea is relatively new, we can still add this country as one of the Mongolian language hubs. According to the Japanese government data, Japan has close to 20,000 Mongolian residents, making it one of the countries with a higher concentration of Mongolian speakers. I'm aware that these numbers do not constitute a large diaspora. However, given that Mongolia does not have a high population, I think that these overseas Mongolian communities are worth mentioning. In addition to South Korea and Japan, other small communities of Mongolians can be found in the US, Canada, Czech Republic, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Australia. And now let's take a look at the language profile of the Mongolian language. In Mongolia, Mongolian is written in the Cyrillic script. However, the Mongolian government is planning to start using the traditional Mongolian script by 2025. In China, the traditional Mongolian script is more commonly used to write this language. 6 to 7 million people in the world speak Mongolian. This language belongs to the Mongolic branch. The Mongolic language family has 4 branches, one of which carries the same name. The status of Mongolian is considered safe. Before we continue, I want to take a few seconds to talk about this video's sponsor, which is you. I'm very happy to see that this channel is growing, and without your support, this would not be possible. Thank you so much, everyone. Buryat is the northernmost spoken Mongolic language. It is spoken by the Buryat people, who mostly reside in the Buryatia Republic in southern Russia, right on the border with Mongolia. Many sources consider Buryat a dialect of Mongolian. However, the more commonly accepted view is that it is a separate language, although both languages share many similarities. The Buryat people are of Mongolic origin. In the 13th century, during the peak of the Mongolian Empire, they were mentioned as the forest people who lived in the northern regions of the Mongolian heartland. Today, the Buryats have a culture almost identical to the Mongolian people. A large percentage of them engage in nomadic pastoralism, live in yurts, and follow Buddhism. The 2021 Russian population census tells us that there are 460,000 Buryats in Russia, and that the Buryat-speaking population in the country is 393,000. This is quite a high percentage of Buryat speakers within the Buryat population. Many ethnic groups in Russia do not have such a high percentage of native language speakers. In Mongolia, there are 43,000 Buryats. However, unfortunately, I was not able to find a number for Buryat speakers. The more commonly accepted view is that most Buryats in Mongolia speak Mongolian. In China, the data about the Buryats is even more confusing. Since the Buryat people are counted as Mongols, we do not have an accurate number for Buryat people and Buryat speakers in China. However, the most common estimate shows that there might be as many as 70,000 Buryat people in China who mostly inhabit the northeastern lands bordering Mongolia. There are no large Buryat communities outside Russia, China, and Mongolia. Buryat is written in the Cyrillic script, though until the 1917 Russian Revolution it used the traditional Mongolian script. Around 400,000 people speak this language. Buryat belongs to the Mongolic branch. The status of Buryat is definitely endangered. The Oirat language is spoken by the Oirat people who are of Mongolic origin. They are the westernmost Mongolic group who primarily live in Western Mongolia, Northwest China, and Russia's Northern Caucasus region. However, the Oirats who live in Russia are often regarded as the Kalmyk people. The Kalmyks are a branch of Oirats who speak the Kalmyk language and live quite far away from the Mongolian heartland. We will cover the Kalmyks and the Kalmyk language separately later in the video. It is presumed that the Oirat population in Mongolia is close to 250,000. However, the number of Oirat speakers are not well documented. In China, the Oirats are not registered as a separate ethnic group but as Mongols. It is presumed that there are between 150 to 250,000 Oirats in China, around 100,000 of whom are said to speak Oirat. In Kyrgyzstan, there is a very tiny population of the Oirat people, which is around 12,000. A handful of people in this community speak the Oirat language. Oirat uses the Cyrillic script in Mongolia and the traditional Mongolian script in China. I could not find any information about the script that the Oirats in Kyrgyzstan use. Around 350,000 Oirats are estimated to speak the Oirat language. It belongs to the Mongolic branch and the status of Oirat is definitely endangered. Santa, also known as Dongxiang, is a Mongolic language spoken by the Dongxiang people. The Dongxiang people are recognized as one of China's 56 minority groups. According to the 2010 population census in China, there are 621,000 Dongxiang people in the country. They mostly inhabit the Dongxiang Autonomous County in central China. There are two main theories about the origin of the Dongxiang people. The most commonly accepted perspective states that they are the descendants of the non-Mongolic Central Asian immigrants who settled in China during Genghis Khan's reign in the 13th century. Over the centuries, they were influenced by the Mongols and the Chinese. The second view claims that they are the descendants of the Mongol soldiers who were garrisoned in China in the 13th century. According to this view, the Mongol soldiers remained in China, married women from Tibetan, Chinese, and Hui communities, and gradually developed their own mixed ethnic group. Today, the Dongxiang people are predominantly Muslims. Their main economic activities are farming and rug making. The Santa language that the Dongxiang speak has many loanwords from Mandarin. In addition, many Arabic, Tibetan, Persian, and Turkic loanwords can be found in this language. Santa uses both the Latin and Arabic scripts. Around 200,000 people are presumed to speak this language. Santa belongs to the Shirongolic branch. The status of this language is vulnerable. The Ordos language is spoken by the Ordos Mongols who live in the southern part of China's Inner Mongolia region. Today, the Ordos Mongols are not seen as a separate ethnic group in China and are counted as Mongols in Chinese population censuses. Therefore, the number of Ordos Mongols and Ordos speakers are purely based on academic estimations. The most substantial field study on the Ordos Mongols was conducted in the 1950s, which claims that the Ordos Mongol population was around 64,000. Today, however, it is estimated that there are around 100,000 Ordos Mongols in China. We owe most of what we know about Ordos Mongols to Antoine Mostert, who was a Belgian Catholic missionary in China. Between 1906 and 1925, he lived among the Ordos community in China. Alongside his missionary work, he learned fluent Mongolian and studied the Ordos language, ethnography, and folklore. He wrote several materials about this language. Mostart was indeed an interesting person, and he was known to have uttered the following words. Turk chap is putting his heart and soul into these videos. If you like this video, you can support this channel by leaving a like, commenting and subscribing. Thank you, Mr. Mostart, for your wise words. Ordos does not have a strong written tradition, however the traditional Mongol script is often used to write this language. Unfortunately, we cannot really talk about a precise range for Ordos speakers, however based on all the information I've read, I can say that probably between 60 to 100,000 people speak this language today. Ordos belongs to the Mongolic branch. The status of this language is definitely endangered. The Kalmyk language started as a variant of the Oirat language. However, throughout the centuries, it developed into a separate language. Kalmyk is spoken by the Kalmyk people, who live in Russia's northern Caucasus region, at the edge of the Caspian Sea. As you can see here on this map, they live quite far away from the Mongolian heartland. The Kalmyks are a branch of the Oirat people and are the westernmost Mongolic people. The Kalmyk people lived in the Mongolian steppes until the 17th century, when they migrated to the northern coast of the Caspian Sea, where they still reside today. The Kalmyks follow a lifestyle similar to many other smaller Mongolic groups that we'll be covering in this video. They have been engaging in animal herding, hunting and fishing. According to the 2021 population census, there are 180,000 Kalmyks in Russia. The Kalmyks are predominantly Buddhists. They are seen as the only Buddhist inhabitants in Europe. Of course, since the definition of Europe varies in most sources, some people reject this idea as Russia's northern Caucasus lands are not seen as Europe by many. One interesting I found is that the Evokese language in the Star Wars universe was created based on Kalmyk. The story says that the sound designer of the movie Return of the Jedi heard Kalmyk in a documentary and found it interesting. He decided to use Kalmyk to create the Evokese language. The Kalmyk language uses the Cyrillic script. Between 110 to 160,000 people speak this language. Kalmyk belongs to the Mongolic branch. Its status is definitely endangered. Daur, also known as Dagur, is a Mongolic language spoken by the Daur people in the Morindava Daur Autonomous Banner in China's Inner Mongolia region. The Daur people are officially recognized as one of the 56 ethnic groups in China. Therefore, we can access solid data about their population. According to the 2010 population census, there are 132,000 Daurs in China. The main economic activities of the Daurs are farming and animal husbandry. Most of the Daurs follow shamanism. There is also a considerable number of people in the Daur community who follow Tibetan Buddhism. The Daurs have a unique cultural sport named Beiko, which is also known as Daur hockey. This game has been played for nearly 1,000 years in the Daur community. Today, Daur is not a written language. Although a writing system based on the Latin script was created by a Daur scholar, the Daurs are not known to write this language often. Around 100,000 people are said to speak this language. In the Mongolic languages family, Daur forms its own branch that carries the same name. Therefore, the Daur language belongs to the Daur branch. This language is categorized as critically endangered, meaning Daur faces the threat of extinction. Mongol is spoken by the Mongol people in the Huzutu Autonomous County in central China. The Mongol people are also known as the Tu people or Tsagan Mongols, meaning white Mongols. They are among the 5 Mongolic groups officially recognized as minorities by the Chinese government. The 2010 Chinese population census shows that there are 290,000 Mongol people in China. The Mongol language has 2 dialects, Huzu Mongol and Minhe Mongol. These 2 dialects are not very mutually intelligible. The most common theory about the origins of the Mongols is that they are most probably the descendants of the Mongolian troops who garrisoned in China during Genghis Khan's era. After the collapse of the Mongol Empire, these soldiers remained in China and built families. They have managed to protect their language and cultural identity until today. Today, the Mongols are known to be herders and farmers. Many Mongols are seasonal workers and a considerable number of them work as miners. The Mongol community is predominantly Buddhist. However, Christianity is also becoming more and more popular due to the efforts of Korean and American missionaries. Although a Latin-based alphabet was created for this language, Mongol does not have a strong written tradition. Around 80,000 people speak this language. Mongol belongs to the Mongolic branch. Its status is severely endangered. The Bonan language is spoken by the Bonan people. The Bonans are officially recognized as a separate group by the Chinese government. With a population of a little more than 20,000 people, they are one of the smallest ethnic groups in China. Today, the Bonans live in Xishan, Bonan, Dongxiang, and Salar Autonomous County in central China. Yes, this is the name of one single county. Like many of the Mongol groups in China, the Bonans share a similar history regarding their origin. It is widely accepted that the ancestors of the Bonans were Mongol troops stationed in China. Specifically, sometime between the late 13th and early 14th centuries, the forebears of the Bonans were assigned to Tongran County in central China to patrol the area against the Tibetans. Eventually, they stayed in this region and mixed with the Tibetans and Chinese. Throughout the centuries, the Bonans lived in the same region. In the late 1600s, a group of Bonans converted to Islam and moved east to the lands that they reside in today. The Bonans who remained Buddhists eventually mixed with the rest of the people in the region, primarily with the other Mongol groups. The Bonans who are recognized as a separate minority today are the Muslim members of this community. The Bonan language spoken by the Muslim Bonans is influenced by Mandarin and is much better preserved. The Bonan spoken by the Buddhist Bonans is influenced by Tibetan and is not as well preserved. In addition, the Muslim Bonans have a much higher population compared to the Buddhist Bonans. Bonan does not have a writing system, however the Tibetan script is rarely used to write this language among the Buddhist Bonans. 6,000 to 8,000 people speak Bonan. This language belongs to the Mongolic branch. Its status is definitely endangered. Eastern Uyghur is spoken by the Uyghur people. Unlike all the people we have covered so far, the Uyghur people are actually of Turkic origin, or at least they're more commonly accepted to be of Turkic origin. The Uyghur people are one of the smallest ethnic groups in China. According to the 2020 Chinese population census results, the Uyghur population in China is 14,706. The Uyghurs live in the Sunan Uyghur Autonomous County in northern China and consist of 4 linguistically different groups. The first and largest group is the Western Uyghur people, around 4,600 of whom speak Western Uyghur, which is a Turkic language. It is commonly accepted that the Western Uyghurs are the descendants of the Uyghurs who fled to the Gansu province after the collapse of the Uyghur Empire in 840 AD. The second group consists of the Eastern Uyghurs, around 2,800 of whom speak the Eastern Uyghur language. Unlike Western Uyghur, Eastern Uyghur is a Mongolic language. Regarding the ancestry of the Eastern Uyghurs, there are 2 main theories. As I mentioned in the beginning of this chapter, the first and more popular one claims that they share the same ancestry as the Western Uyghurs, but became Mongolized and adopted the Mongolic language over the centuries. The second theory claims that they are the descendants of the Mongol groups that settled in northern China in the 13th century. The remaining 2 Uyghur groups consist of Tibetan and Mandarin-speaking members. However, they are not as large as the Eastern Uyghur and Western Uyghur-speaking groups. Like many of the Mongolic people who live in China, the Uyghur people are known for engaging in farming and animal husbandry. As the economic condition of the Sunan Uyghur Autonomous County is not great, younger members of the Uyghur community are leaving for bigger cities to find better job opportunities. Since Eastern Uyghur is not spoken widely in the rest of China, this language is getting weaker each year with young Uyghurs leaving their homeland. Eastern Uyghur is a spoken language and does not have a writing system. Around 2,800 people speak this language. It belongs to the Mongolic branch. The status of Eastern Uyghur is severely endangered. Well, I think Mongol is the most interesting language that we'll cover in this video. At least it's my personal favorite because it has quite an interesting story. The Mongol language is spoken by the Mongol people who inhabit 2 isolated villages in West Afghanistan's Herat province. The ancestors of the Mongol people were Mongol soldiers stationed by Genghis Khan in West Afghanistan in the 13th century. Like many of the Mongol garrisons in West Asia, the Mongol people remained settled in the lands they patrolled and never returned to Mongolia. Many Mongol groups like the Mongols lived across modern-day Afghanistan for centuries. However, almost all of them eventually mixed with larger ethnic groups and lost their language and cultural identity. The Mongols are seen as the last of these people who still carry some remnants from the Mongolian heartland. In previous studies, the Mongols were reported to be following a nomadic lifestyle and engaging in animal husbandry. The Mongol language carries characteristics from the Middle Mongolian that was spoken in Genghis Khan's era. Over the centuries, as a result of interaction with Uranic groups, the Mongol language was heavily influenced by Persian. Unfortunately, we don't have any contemporary data about the population of the Mongol people and Mongol speakers. Therefore, I will be talking about older data from previous decades. According to the field studies, the Mongol population in the 1970s was between 2,000 to 3,000. Very few Mongols were able to speak the Mongol language. In the early 2000s, it was estimated that fewer than 200 people spoke this language. Today, since there are not many substantial studies about the Mongol people, it is simply not known whether this language has gone extinct or not. Mongol does not have a writing system. It is not known how many people speak this language today or whether this language is spoken at all. It belongs to the Mongol branch that was named after Mongol itself. Mongol is categorized as critically endangered or extinct.